us and see us. You can let us on the chat if everything is okay. The agenda for today is a quick introduction about SmokeD. Then we'll move on to the Serhii's presentation. After the Serhii's presentation, we will take a quick survey, and after the survey, we'll take a Q&A session. Also, I would like to let you know that you can ask questions on the chat, like in the meantime of every activity we'll be having today. Serhii, after his presentation, will read the questions out loud and answer it at the end of the webinar. So, give me a second. I will share I will share presentation with you. Something about SmokeD. The main idea is to provide the solution for early wildfire detection for our clients with alerts of any danger within 10 minutes. The main features are fast detection, precise location, small amount of false alerts, and our systems works 24/7. You can see on the slides the main components of our systems. It's basically detectors. We have two different types of detectors. Detectors are cameras that are looking in one direction, and we also have PTZ cameras that are rotating. Our software make you able to control the devices. How it works? Basically, our cameras and other devices providing packages of pictures and frames to the cloud. Cloud is equipped with NA algorithms that are detecting any danger, so we can send alerts to our clients. The SmokeD systems are effective up to 15 miles. Few words about WebApp. Basically, WebApp is like a dispatch center in your personal computer. You are able to see the live views from the detectors, check the location of the areas, control, if needed, the PTZ cameras through the web interface, as you can see on the slide. Also, you can review the alerts. Our mobile application is a light version of a web application. The only differences are you are not able to take control over the devices, and it's free to the public. So if you would like to see if there is any detector in your area, you can download it and subscribe to any detector, and you can check the live view and weather condition, for example, location, if there is any in your area. SmokeD drones is our solution in a early development stage. The main idea is to provide a solution for our clients to make them able to verify any danger through the autonomously working drones to see if there is actually wildfire in a place where we detected the danger. So SmokeD figures, we are currently monitoring over 9 million acres all over the world. We have like 360 installation for 120 clients, starting from 2020 when the company was founded. So that would be it about the SmokeD. Thank you very much. If you'd like to contact us, feel free. And now we'll move on to the Serhii's presentation. So Serhii, whenever you're ready, you can start. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jakub. Hello, everyone. So my name is Serhii Sydorenko, and I work both for Ukraine Forest Institute as a head of a forest ecology department, and in the same time, I also work for Wageningen University as a postdoc. And actually, this research, it is actually a topic of my postdoc, and now I am close to the finish of it. So this webinar is quite useful also for me for the examination of results of the project. Project name is Wildfires of War, and we get the financing from Maria Curie Action for this. We are started in a narrow topic focused only on Ukraine, but very soon at the beginning we found out that this topic is start to be very actual also for a broader audience and globally, because according to a report of Institute for Economics and Peace, Global Peace Index, in 2024, 56 countries have conflicts worldwide with the participation and involvement of 92 countries. So like now situation globally become very unstable, and new conflicts appear, which makes this research like more actual each day. Actually, I have quite big presentation, but I encourage you to interrupt me if you maybe have some like urgent questions. So of course we have a QA session in the end, but if you want to clarify something, you can like put some question also in the chat, and I will explain some detail for you. And I'm very grateful that you expressed willing and interest on my talk today. So 40 participants, it's really not bad. So about the structure of presentation. So I will start with a direct impact of war for fire regime in Ukraine, and on direct impact we understand like shelling, bombing, and using fire as a weapon. In indirect impact we classify it in different aspects, like a social aspect, fuel landscape level, fuel change, and also some like impacts that lead to collapse of fire prevention and fire suppression system in the whole country. So it is like not directly impacted, but impact through a proxy of other factors. And in the end of presentation, we also talk a little bit about actually management and about the steps how to actually can mitigate negative impacts and reduce of those risks. So if we looked on a distribution of landscape fires on those pictures, we can clearly see that Jakob, where can I find oh yeah, I found it actually. We can clearly see that distribution of fires, they are actually located in the zones where the most intensive combats take place. Like here, you can see a battle for the Kyiv, where forces will come from northwest and then northeast. Also, you see a battle for Kherson here, and battle for Kharkiv, and also attempts of the Russians to break our defense in the east. And on 2023, we also like see that most of the fires occurs also in the zones where most of combats and more intensive combats take place, also like east and south part of Ukraine. And 2024 was a quite interesting year. So it was a wildfire situation was accomplished not only with a military action, but also with a weather condition, and we will talk about that a little bit later. And you also see that front line was also extended to a northeastern part of Ukraine. And if you see on map for 2022, this kind of unique situation when on the western part of the country, we also had a lot of wildfires. And we also talk about it a little bit later, because this region is quite unique. Here we have Carpathian Mountains, and it is like one of the most safe in the terms of wildfire region. We have a lot of participation there. It's like a more cold, more wet region with a less share of pine forest. Pine forest is like the most fire-prone forest type in Ukraine. It is also important to talk a little bit about official data, and some of you, I hope some of you, because we have like now 45 participants, if you try to Google about the situation with wildfires or forest fires in Ukraine, you probably find out a lot of different numbers, from a very small number, like several thousand of fires on a total area of 20,000, to a huge number, like millions of a hectare. And it can lead you for some kind of, I don't know, dissonance, because a lot of informational noise in social media, and even in some kind of a news. And the first reason why it's occur is because, like, our Forest Agency of Ukraine provide official statistics only about forest fires. And this statistic comes only from a liberated territory, or territory which is like under control of Ukraine. And of course, this official statistic, is not complete at all. So it is only a part of the situation that we have with the forest fires. And as you see, like, situation was not so dramatic according to the data of Forest Agency of Ukraine. But this statistic, again, is incomplete. It don't have statistic from a front line, from a close buffer to front line, and from occupied territory as well. So it is incomplete. In the same time, it is also important to note that it is a statistic about forest fire, and sometimes people used to have misunderstanding about terms. What is a forest fire? What is landscape fires? What is a wildfires? Because if you talk about forest fires, it is actually fires on a forested territory. But if you talk about landscape fires, it is a territory in different types of landscape, with also a share of agriculture burned as well. So it is like a total of burned area for a country. That's why we have like a little bit different statistic. And if you return back to a previous slide, so for 2024, for instance, for example, we have a total burned area from landscape fires is around 1 million hectare. And this number is a huge, actually it is like more than in the whole Europe altogether, with North Africa, and also with the Middle East. So number is like huge. Before actually massive invasion of Russians, we have quite smooth and stable seasonality of landscape fires. We have usually we have two peaks of wildfires in the early spring and in the end of summer and beginning of autumn. But with the war, as you see, like, we also have two peaks, but the biggest one was in April, and it was coincided actually with the beginning of invasion, when we start to have an experience like thousands and thousands new ignition sources in different types of landscapes, and vegetation was like ready to accept the fire. We have a lot of dead grass after winter, so we have like a huge amount of wildfires and landscape fires during that period. But you also can see that for all of those 3 years of war, this seasonality is different. So now the seasonality is not depend only on the weather and phenological changes in the main types of vegetation, but now one of the major factor is actually military actions. So was the beginning of war here, and to be honest, beginning of war started not in 22 but in 2014. But on this research, we are mostly focused on a massive invasion. And for 2023, we have a peak in the beginning of autumn, where we have a lot of also intensive combats in the south part of Ukraine. And in 2024, we have a big peak from July to September, where actually two factors meet each other. Weather, like a very hot and dry weather condition, with a military action, because on that period, when we have like a less of rain, it is also ideal period for military actions. So most of fires come from here. Another minor factor is actually a weather condition, and as you see from a graph for 2022 and 2023, in some way we was lucky, because both of these 2 years weather danger was quite lower than compared to average, to a norm for last 30 years. But in 2024, it goes up. And that was from some kind of catastrophic synergy. And it actually leads to a total burn area of 1 million hectares for 2024. Here, honestly, they are not like founders, and we don't have any support from that project. It's just a slide from another presentation. So sorry for this, it's my mistake. And on the slide, you see actually a projection of climate change and how fire danger will change to the end of a century. And you see that it will increase actually on the area where now we have active combats and pollution by UXA. And this area will have more dry periods, and also like a participation amount will decrease to the end of a century. So now we can even talk about a triangle for wildfires of war or extreme wildfires of war. So 3 major factors actually leads to forming of this environment for extreme wildfires. It is unmanaged land here on occupied territory near front line, and also pollution by mines. New ignition sources, for sure, because now most of them comes from a military action, and also manifestation of a climate change. All them together will form an environment for this extreme huge wildfires. It is also important to think about how for what distance actually we have direct impact of war and military action on wildfires. So if you compare 2 years, 2022 and 2023, you can see from these maps and also from graphs that in 2022 we don't have, at the beginning, we don't have like a clear front line. It was unstable and very dynamic. Actually, it was like Russian troops that moved here and there, and active combats take a part, like on that huge part of Ukraine. But in 2023, it becomes stable, and it leads to a situation where intensity and frequency of fires near front line become bigger. And also it is a comparison of 2023 with 2024, and it is like quite similar. But it is important also to think about density of fires. And on density of fires, we mean like a number of wildfires for each 1,000 hectares. And about flammability. Flammability is a metric which express total burn area for each 1,000 hectares. And if we compared these 3 years of war, we can easily see that fire density start to increase each year, which means that like military actions start to be more intense, but also new variety of weapon coming up to the front line, and we have more and more ignitions, and it also lead to increasing in flammability. Like for 5 kilometer buffer zone, flammability increased like 8 times. But it is also important to to note that impact also increased on the depth. So for a bigger distance from a front line, when in 2022, like a clear impact we see on a depth of 10 kilometers from front line in both sides. So for 2024, we see that impact for 35 kilometers for both sides from a front line. And it means that big amount of ammunition and types of weapon and drones they're used, and the range of this weaponry is also increased like dramatically. And we moved from 5-10 kilometers to 35 and even 40 kilometers. And compared these numbers with the 2022, we see like almost no impact in 2022 on a depth of 40 kilometers. But compared to 2024, it starts to be big in 30 times. And we are slowly moved to weaponization of a fire. This idea, this tactic, or even strategy is well known for centuries, even I think even even more than centuries. But now this kind of using of a fire evolved for sure, and to have some kind of tactical advantage from using a fire. Actually, militaries use it, for instance, to make mines be visible, because with this natural vegetation or abundant agricultural land or even managed agricultural land, sometimes they have like a lot of different types of mines. And if today it was like a pretty safe landscape with the mining from a distance, it can change like in one day or even in several hours. And with this dense vegetation, it's simply impossible to see all of these mines. So one of approaches how to take advantages is to use a fire just to clear area and to make these mines be visible. And when I started, I was also a little bit surprised. My first thought was that fire will clear area and all of the mines will detonate after impact of fire. But in reality, the situation does not work. Only some of the mines, they are detonated, but others, they just start to be more unstable. So it is not a panacea and not a treatment for the mining, let's say. So it doesn't replace all of them, but at least they make it more visible. Another thing is to use a fire to hide the movements of the troops with the smoke, but it is very rare. It was like only several times, and it was like not as super effective. Now on the front line, sometimes military use FPV drones with this special ammunition that provide the smoke, but this like very rare. But more often, actually both sides, they use a fire if they know that on particular area, forested area, or on shelter belts, or somewhere with a dense vegetation, they have troops or fortification. And if you clearly don't know where there's like a vehicles and so on, the easiest way is simply to burn everything, to burn forests, to destroy it with actually technique. And this tactic is like super widely used, especially with by Russians, because they have like a lot of different kind of like heavy flamethrower systems. And it lead us to actually how militaries use fire as a weapon. So first of all, military have a variety actually of different kind of ammunition, and some of that kind of ammunition, they are specially developed to to provoke massive ignitions. And one of this type of ammunition you see here on the screen is M321. It is ammunition for reactive missile systems. And it was widely used in eastern part of Ukraine. And actually, when our forces liberate Kharkiv region from Russians, they captured a lot of this ammunition. And on next years of a war, Dragon drones actually appears, and it is a combination of heavy agricultural drones that can hold like more than 10 kilometers of liquids, but instead of pesticides, they use termite liquid, and it burns like everything under any condition. So it doesn't depend from weather anymore. And on that slide, you see how it actually used. So now, if we even start to analyze seasonality of the fires, actually from 22 till 25, we even see that we have about fires even during the winter. So it forms some kind of like endless fire season. Of course, amount, number, and the burn area for winter months is much more smaller than for spring or summer, but we have also a lot of landscape fires during the winter time. And actually, impact of war on the fire statistic, it reshaped fire statistic in Ukraine, and this like impact was so big that even our authorities, like Forest Research Agency of Ukraine, they have to even include the special cause of forest fires. It is a military, like a combat actions and unexploded urban territories. And more than 45% of all forest fires now caused by military action. But this number, again, is not completed. It's only taken from liberated territory or territory controlled by Ukraine government. So real number is much more bigger. And we have this big amount of causes because actually those kind of drones is just Serhii, and they're like a long-range weapons. They can fly more than 1,000 kilometers, and they are very slow, and they are very simple target for air defense. And each time they like put a lot of them, sometimes hundreds of them, and when our militaries like hit them down in the morning, we usually have a lot of fires, forest fires or landscape fires on the whole territory of Ukraine. It is another important note. Actually, it is a wildfires that we have in 2024 fire season, and it is from Poltava region. And it was like a really like a deadly event. Several villages was damaged, like you see 50 houses was destroyed. And before this year, Poltava was like also safe region without those catastrophic events. But this fire was out of capacity of a fire suppression system. So you can imagine what's happening in the front line, where all the services is actually don't work properly because of a limitation from military situation and safety situation from this region. So it is also important because climate is changed a lot in Ukraine, and like 15-20 years ago, Ukraine was a quite safe country in terms of wildfires or forest fires. But last 5-10 year situation changed dramatically, and now we have like massive catastrophic events that followed after prolonged drought period, which was super unusual for Ukraine, but now it is also a part of our reality. So now we have a variety of factors that lead to extreme wildfires, manifestation of climate change, but also this war impact as well. Now we are returning back to indirect impact. And as I said previously, on an indirect impact, we understand also this impacts through a proxy of social changes. And here you see on one map, you see a number of refugees and like inner refugees. We call them VPO in Ukrainian. It is like an inner replacement population in Ukraine. So in 2022 situation at the beginning, especially at the beginning of invasion, was quite chaotic because a lot of people was evacuated or escaped from that territories. And they moved, of course, to the west as the most safe place in the country. And according to reports, around 8 million people moved, and they use these three regions as a like a host, and also as a logistic center. And part of these 8 million people stay here for a while, try to find a shelter or apartments, or so on. And this increasing in population, because 8 million people is actually around 25 of all population of Ukraine, was leads also to increasing of number of landscape fires in the region, because some of people stay in a large cities, but a lot of them also moved to rural areas to find some places there. And fire usually follows to a population. So places with a higher population density usually, of course, have a big amount of ignitions. Another aspect of indirect impact is landscape fuel change. And here you see like a one interval of front lines around like 200 meters near Zaporizhia, and we pick this territory as a study area because front line here was relatively stable during last like 3 years of war, more or less. And here where I draw lines, you see like even without any classification or processing, we clearly see that vegetation types is changed here. We saw here like a huge green belt. And in terms of fire signs, it means that vegetation types and also fuel complexes here on the territory is changed. And on these maps on the right part of a slide, you see that croplands, agricultural lands, become abundant, and we also like analyzed and see that 40-45% of croplands, they are converted to actually to grasses in a depth of 30 kilometers in both sides. And then these grasslands, they also started to colonize by shrublands in 2024, and in 2025 we will also continue this analysis, but we expect a bigger share of shrubs on this graph. And as most of us is actually have a solid backgrounds in fire science, so probably you are very familiar with classical fuel models prepared by Scott and Bergen. But for other participants, I also put these graphs, classical graphs, on my presentation, just to express how potentially fire behavior will change with these fuel complexes changes. So usually when we have agricultural fires or crop fires in Ukraine before war, it usually follows in the early beginning of fire season or after harvesting of a cropland. And it means that fuel load, it's not so big. It's like around 1 up to 2 tons per hectares of that fuel. But with this fuel complex change, when this cropland changed to grasslands, first of all, we have a change of a fuel load that become a bigger, up to 5-6, or for some plots even more, like even 7-8 tons per hectare, because this territory in Ukraine, I mean like eastern part and south part of Ukraine, most of typical soil type is a Chernozem, which is extremely fertile soil. So grasslands here, they like the grows very well, dense and very productive. And actually, this fuel models, they change like from a low grass to a moderate or even a high grass. And on this graph, you also see that like moving from one type of a model to another lead to increasing of rate of speed, like almost 3 times. And in terms of other metrics like flame lengths, it can lead to increasing in a 5 times. It is also important to say that for this area, when we have croplands, it forms some kind of mosaic of different landscape. So this landscape was not homogeneous, it was heterogeneous. So we have different crops that have a different type of phenology. And usually when we have like a fire in one crop, in one field, it will not change to moved or penetrate to another field because of these differences in crops and in the phenology. And it means that also like a moisture content of all of that crops is also different. So sometimes like one cropland can like behave as some kind of a fire barrier for fires that's spreading from another type of a field is another crops. And another thing is also we need to think in the social dimension, because those territories is quite close to front line, and it means that like our governments, they do a lot of efforts to safe evacuation of people, and from most of these villages or small towns near this front line or on that buffer zone, where we see these changes of vegetation. Actually, like young people mostly leave it or evacuate it, but usually like some people express a willing to stay there, and very often it is like a senior people, and actually it is a most vulnerable actually like social group. And you see here on a slide in the bottom, and actually on the right part, is actually how it looks here. How it looks like when our agricultural land was converted to a grasslands with some weeds, with the grasses. And this photo in the bottom, I put it here just to show you that not only like a pine forest that is close to a settlement or to a home can be very dangerous, but even usually like grass with the weeds can also form very hazardous environment, because when the land become unmanaged, even for 1-2 years, it can be very easily accepted by a fire and spread from this abundant houses to the houses where people actually live, and fire risk for settlements that are close to front lines is remained very, very high. Also, we find very interesting a side effect in our research when we start to analyze this fuel complexity change in South Ukraine. We found that very often this landscape fires that occur in a field, they don't spread out of a field. And here you see this rectangular form of landscape fire. And one reason for this, it can be different types of crops on field A and field B. But another reason is actually shelter belts here, or windbreaks if you want. So in Ukraine, it's very complicated and comprehensive system of agroforestry that was developed in 60-70 years ago. So each agriculture field, big agriculture field, they are surrounded by windbreaks, actually by trees, like a rows. And this of these shelter belts or windbreaks in Ukraine is from 10, 15, up to sometimes even 50 meters, if you talk about projections from a crone. And we found that the system actually can behave as some kind of fire barrier and behave as a fire barrier system, but only for grass fires or agriculture fires. And also it depends of quality of these windbreaks. So if it have a dense structure and enough width, it can stop wildfire. And here on the graph, actually it is results from my wife's PhD, and she's not a fire researcher, she's an agroforester. But here is important to see how wind speed change when wind approaching to windbreak. So wind decreased a lot, so potential fire behavior will also decrease, and fire spread will also a little bit increased. Also important to see that the phytomass is also decreasing when we approaching to a windbreak, and usually this effect we can see up to I think two heights of a stand. So if height of the high of a trees we have around 10 meters, so this effect we will see on 20 meters. But it is also important that these trees, they also act as a barrier or as a screen to prevent embers and heat transfers from wildfires. So they also prevent a spotting on this side, for example. So in that way, we discover another interesting ecosystem service for Ukrainian windbreaks. Maybe it is not very interesting for international audience, but at least for Eastern Europe, I know that it is a common practice to have this type of agroforestry system, which can also contribute to reducing of risks. And I put actually this slide also because in eastern part of Ukraine and south part of Ukraine, where most of active combats take part now, there is not a lot of forested areas. So very often the only shelter that military have is actually the shelter belts or windbreaks. And they often make or build fortification on inside or under this tree crowns, and very often combats take place from one shelter belt to another shelter belt, like both sides fight for this or for another, and it leads to a very serious impact on that system. So we can talk about physical impact directly from a shelling or use of heavy machinery, tanks, and so on. But also the system also damaged by landscape fires. And here on Kherson region, we do some like shot analysis what's happening, and we found like impact of landscape fires is not huge, but it is only part of the impact. Another dimension of impact is physical damage. So to understand the whole impact for this agroforestry system, we need also looking on physical impact and do like time series analysis, not for 1 year, but in advance to understand how vegetation indexes will change, and then we can classify a real impact on that system. Because this system for south part of Ukraine, as I said previously, it's really contribute to reducing of fire risk by reducing of landscape fire spreading through a landscape. Now we move to factors that contribute to fire suppression and fire prevention collapse. And as you see on the previous maps, like 25% almost of the territory was temporarily occupied by Russians. Some of this territory was liberated, some is not, but on a liberated territory, we have like approximately from 0.17 to up to 0.5 million hectares of forested territories that will need demining. And progress rate for demining, of course, it is very dependent of a type of vegetation, of also intensity of this mine pollution, but this progress is very, very slow, and it takes like years and years. And now with these polluted territories, especially forested territories, it means that there is no like any fire suppression interventions on the territory, because it's very dangerous for personnel, and we have a lack of heavy like techniques that can operate there. And here on the slide you see one of the fire trucks that was like exploded by a tank mine in a forest. So this territory now don't have it can be used for interventions for firefighters, and also there is no fire prevention treatment. Like there is no development of fire barriers on the territory. There is no thinning. There is no other forestry treatments that contribute to reducing of fire risk on the territories, and it leads to also to increasing of fuel load, and in the future it leads to more catastrophic and more intense forest fires on that territories. Another issue is gap in experience actually firefighters and the foresters, because foresters, they actually first responders. It is a first role in the forest fires, but also foresters do all fire prevention in these forested areas. So they do a forest management, they create full breaks, fire lines, etc., etc., etc. And with the beginning of this massive invasive, a lot of foresters join the army. It's like every seventh one, and they leave like some kind of a gap, because we need like to prepare the new generation of foresters and firefighters. It is a slide just with more information about the mining process in Ukraine. Here, important part is, I think the most important part that I need here to say is just like forested territories, they have the lowest priority on the mining. The highest priority is settlements, of course, infrastructure objects, then agricultural lands, and in the end, forested lands. So this impact will be significant for decades, unfortunately. And if you talk about unexploded ordnance pollution and mined areas, it is important to think in several directions. In the density of the pollution, because it can be like several munition for each square kilometers, or it can be hundreds or thousands of munition in square kilometers, and it make difference. Also, it is important to think about it as on different types of ammunition. Here, actually, the crater formed from a ballistic missile, and it was taken by my friend from Kharkiv, and it was taken like 100 meters from a place where I used to live. And another important thing is depth. Is the depth of pollution. This drawing was prepared by my daughter, but she catch main idea, because sometimes she also participate on the background when I have an online talk or something, and she prepared this drawing for me, but she catch a main idea, because in terms of the mining, probably it will be easier to clear area from landmines that lie on the surface and probably on that horizon, because all these heavy demining machines, they can go to some depths and also clear this like layer of a soil. But other one, they can be very deep inside the soil, and it's very hard to clean the area from them, and they stay there for a long time. And if we do a reference to Germany, Brandenburg, or to France, where they have highly polluted territories with unexploded ordnance. So these territories, like 1 year, they're like more or less safe, but some year, this munition pop up from a deeper layer of a soil and go up to higher one, and these territories start to be hazardous again. And as one of my friends make some kind of like allegory or comparison, so he say like we can think about this unexploded ordnance as about stones on your garden. So you like clean all territory in the spring, but next spring you have the same situation again. These stones is pop up from deeper soil to the surface. And it is also important to talk about like a broader sense, because wildfires and landscape fires, they don't respect borders and they don't care about political situation. They easily spread from a political, like a border of one country to another. And Ukraine is a quite unique country because we have a huge areas that are polluted by a radioactive pollution, Chernobyl exclusion zone. And in 2022, we have a huge area of wildfires there because Russians use this territory to invade the Ukraine and try to surround the Kiev. So they moved through a Chernobyl exclusion zone, and it leads to increasing of burn area to 500 times. And as a result of that wildfires, of course, we have a lot of smoke produced by that fires, and smoke is easily transferred to huge territories, to large Ukrainian cities and impact population, but also can even move to Europe, to our like closest neighbor countries. And I even don't start to talk about like a health impact of smoke. You probably all know about it. It's of course it increases mortality and it's provoke cancer and birth defects, and also of course if you have a respiratory illness, it will exacerbate them a lot. And another important point that was made by de Klerk. So he and the group of researchers from his team, they start to assess like impact of war in Ukraine since 2022 on carbon emission. And they assess that war-related production or emission of a carbon, they can be equal to annual emission of Austria, Hungary, and Czech Republic and Slovakia altogether combined. So we even can talk about like impact of war on climate change. And yeah, he's probably the most optimistic slide in my presentation because it was like really very depressive. So here on the slide, you see a graphical abstract of my postdoc, and this graphical abstract was prepared by Sofia, this lady here. Yeah, she's 10 years old, and she prepared this idea of this graph, and the first initial design was also prepared by her. And then we asked Anastasia Fenenko to finalize those ideas in this beautiful picture. And as you see on the center of a graph is a pigeon symbol of a piece, because we believe that all of our like treatments and steps to reduce risks can be done more effectively when actually war will stop. So during the war, we are very limited in tools that we can actually use, and our impact is also limited. So here on this abstract, you also see this fire lady. She's setting a fire near settlements to prepare like a safe zones, because we believe that we need a reform Ukrainian fire management, and we need moved from like fire management that only focus on a forest to integrated fire management with active use of good fire and with active involvement of local communities for sure. And actually it is different aspects of my postdoc. We covered only some of them, actually most of them, but another one like invasive species and forest pests and diseases don't cover it here because it will probably take a lot of times. If you have questions, you just can keep them about all of these factors to the end of our webinar on Q&A session. And we smoothly moved to steps to mitigate negative impacts. And here I also put some steps that was actually done by Ukrainian government. So Ukrainian government, like a Ministry of Environment, Forest Agency of Ukraine, research institutions, and also NGOs like WWF, they are really actively involved into assessment of ecological impact of war. And a lot of work actually done. Some changes in the legislation was done to highlight importance of assessment of evidence of ecocides that Russian Federation do in Ukraine. But we also need to acknowledge actually war impact on the fire regimes, and also to a situation that it can be indirect impact. So I believe that our research will seriously also contribute to development of this comprehensive methodology of war impact assessment in a broader sense, because now we have like a forest fires as a component, but I believe that methodology should be also improved, and we also need to think about how to assess indirect impact of war into this scheme. Another step, and I see some people from Utrecht here. So I was on a training last year in Portugal, and in Ukraine we are very optimistic to implementation of use of good fire as an option, for instance, as a fuel management tool, and also as a tool for improving like a biodiversity. And actually this tool is a little bit limited, but it has a synergy with another slide here. Actually, yeah, SmokeD also organized a webinar where Alex held talk about contaminated landscape, like a toolbox for polluted areas, and it has a synergy with also this practice, this fuel management practice, like a using of fires. Because if we have a polluted area, we simply can go there and set the fires personally by firefighters or fire technicians, because it is simply unsafe, and according to rules, we need to stay away like around of 1 kilometer from the territory. And Alex with Linden, they developed a pretty nice toolbox, which is a combination of classical technology, like a classical approach using of a fire as a tool for fuel management, but also using of modern technology like land robotic system. Here you see docking two models, and also with the drones with the Dragon balls to set fire from a safe distance. And this toolbox actually have, I think, great potential to be used in Ukraine, not for whole territory, because, as I mentioned, it's a huge territory, but for some some most vulnerable territories, I think it will be must-have for these areas. So first of all, of course, we need to do fire risk assessment and keep in mind of unexploded ordnance pollution, and also like proximity to the settlements. And when we do this kind of analysis, we will understand like a total area where this technology can be used. And I believe this technology and this toolbox can reduce fire risk significantly for most vulnerable communities that we have. Another step is also like change in focus from a forest to from a forest fire management to a landscape fire management, because all the system fire management system in Ukraine, and I know that we have the same problem in a lot of other Eastern European countries, where we focus mostly on the forest and ignore other type of landscapes outside of the forest. But in Ukraine, when we analyze long-term statistic of landscape fires, we clearly see that most of fires actually occurred outside of the forest, like more than 70%. And our fire danger rating system, they are built only to express fire danger in a forest, and not of all types of forest, but actually for pine forests. And outside the forest, it doesn't work at all. And in most cases, landscape fires, they are started outside the forest in open landscape, somewhere in the grasslands, and then spread into the forest and damage stands. So what we've done, we actually adapted Australian fire danger rating system for grasslands, JFDI, to Ukrainian condition. And we found that this system works amazingly well, even for Ukrainian condition. Of course, we change coefficient, we change threshold for classes, and after it, we see that it's really worth to use with a combination with a fire danger rating system is for forest. So both of systems should be used together. We also believe that, of course, it's not in priority now in time of war, but after it will change, after it will end, it will be very important to also develop some kind of study program and prepare basic wildfire training also for militaries. On this photo, you see like a military guy that trying to suppress forest fire on a polygon. It's photo like a historical photo. It was taken before war started, but you see that we not sure that this guy is totally understand what he is doing, and some questions we also have to his PPE. So yeah, basic training, I think, will be very important on post-war restoration programs for Ukraine and also for other countries that have same issue. Also, actually, important step that already taken, fortunately, is special trainings for forest firefighters and also for incident commanders. So special forest fire center was established in Zhytomyr region, and they have another headquarters near the Kyiv, so like 2 centers. And they focus not only basic firefighter training and incident commander training, but they also give a training about different types of unexploded ordnance, mines that you can find during the war. And also they have very intense first medical aid focused on on first help, and also on blood, how to stop a blood if you have a serious injuries during a fire event because of detonation of this munition or any other reason. So it is very important step that already was done in Ukraine. I talk a little bit about the situation when I describe a fire danger rated system for open landscape, and the same for planning. So in Ukraine, in terms of fire prevention, we have a 10 years plans, forest management plan, but also a fire prevention plan, also for 10 years. For each forest enterprise that we have in Ukraine, they have to have this plan. And here is very important thing. This plan only developed for for single forest users, and you see that they focused only on the forested landscapes and simply ignore landscape that surround it. And very often we simply can't set and develop like a very effective and rational like a full brake system, because we simply can't make them on another end users. So now we start to change this paradigm and trying to move from forest fire prevention plans to fire management plans that will be focused on whole landscape. Whole landscape with involvement of local communities, with involvement of other stakeholders, and we believe that it will improve fire planning a lot and make it more rational, for sure. And according to local communities, very important to do wild and urban interface management. It is a funny thing because term of wild and urban interface is not exist in Ukraine, first of all, so we need to even introduce this term. But even with that, one organization is a regional Eastern European Fire Monitoring Center. They prepared the adaptation of FireSmart for Ukraine, for Ukrainian conditions. And now we have this recommendation, but we don't have actually a wild and urban interface mapping. So now we start a process of a mapping of wild and urban interface all around Ukraine with like a definition and prioritization of most like a fire dangerous zones, which have like a higher priority for forest treatment or management in this wild and urban interface areas. And even with the fact that this recommendation was prepared, I believe 6 or 7 years ago, it is still really uncommon, and most of communities don't know about it, or even don't try to I'm sorry. Yeah, even don't try to implement it and try to use it actually. So now it is another problem of implementation, and we start to build some kind of a strategy with a targeting for different social groups. And on a screen you see actually a fairy tale. It was a project. It was a creative project made by students of Wageningen University, of my group, where I was a mentor, and they prepared a fairy tale about wild and urban interface management, and it was like a super successful one. I love it a lot. And they prepared this fairy tale like for kids, but also to provoke kids to ask questions from adults. So in the end of this fairy tale, students also put a QR code which leads to this recommendation for adults. But we also believe that targeting and working with different social groups will lead to a success. And just to summarize all the steps to mitigate negative impact. I miss one of these. So actually, the impacts of war on fire regimes, as I found, they are simply missed in the most important like a fire government documents. I mean, integrated fire management voluntary guidelines prepared by FAO, as well as landscape fire governance framework. It's also absent there. So acknowledge of these impacts, I believe, is crucial because of global situation with the conflicts all around the globe. And another reason is also like a huge area that will have unexploded ardent pollution, and it needs a unique and tailored fire management for these war-affected landscapes. So I believe that some changes have to be done on those like a fire government. And another important message is a methodology for systematically data collection. Because I also believe that Ukraine can be like an example how to do it. But now we see a process when in the high cabinets we have discussions in the high panels that ecocide actually will be accepted as a one of dimension for like for pain reparation or pain countries that do it. So actually it is very important to have a clear methodology how to prepare this data collection to support the claims of ecocides. And we also believe that this research will also contribute on it a lot. So we will provide some kind of harmonized methodology that can be applicable for other countries as well, not only for Ukraine. So we're doing some kind of zooming out. And last but not least is, of course, it is networking. This networking, it is super important. And on the photo, you see a photo of my group and another group from Forest Camp. This year edition that was held in Poland, where we meet like a lot of amazing people with a lot of bright ideas, and even now we in contact with a lot of them. They also contribute a little bit in our research. So together with the fire community, I believe we can do Ukraine and other countries that experience the same situation more fire safe, at least for next generation, I believe. So it's it's end of my presentation. If you want to work with us, you can see my contact information. So please feel free to contact me. And it's all from my side. Thanks.
Thank you very much for sharing these insights. Thank you for telling us more about fighting wildfires in war zones. I think you might have exhausted the topic because there is not a lot of questions. We got some, so we'll move on in a moment. Now I will ask you guys to complete a quick survey we've made for you today. And also, if you have some questions, this is the moment to ask from. So So yeah, of course, and of course, I see on the chat. Yeah, of course, we will share with you the YouTube video. So let me start the survey for you. Okay, we will be very thankful for your answers, and right after the survey, we'll move on to the question. We got one question, Serhii, if you would like to, you can catch up on the discussion. I think that there wasn't many questions, but obviously we had some discussions, and people were sharing their thoughts and experiences on the chat. So if you'd like to, you can catch up, and yeah, of course, in a moment, like in 2-3 minutes, we'll move on to the Q&A session. Of course, the survey is anonymously, so we won't share the answers right after, so you don't have to be worried. Okay, we'll give you 1 more minute, and we want and we will move on to the Q&A session. Okay, we got more questions. Perfect. Okay, I'm closing the survey for now, and we're moving on to the Q&A session. Thank you for your answers. And first question.
After in the post-war period, in the forum for challenge, now preparing a plan to implement how prescribed fire can be implemented for landscape management and forest fire prevention, but taking into account that the zones with possibilities of ammunition and other types of weapons being detonated, the rest of the territory attentive to climate change and the increase in the number of forest fires. Yeah, good one. Actually, I start to talk a little bit because we need to do prioritization first of all. So what I mean, like for polluted by unexploded ordnance or mined territories that have high fire risks, but they're far away from settlements, probably we will not use prescribed fire at all, and don't use any like a robotic system to do it, to use a fire as a tool, because what tool we have? Actually, we have robotic system to prepare the safe zone, and also drone with dragon balls to actually put a fire. But for this, we need the prioritization. So we have a map with unexploded ordnance pollution, national map prepared by Ukrainian Emergency Service. Also, we have a map, of course, with all local communities, and we have a maps with fire hazard classes for different types of landscape, mostly for forested lands. So combination of all of these layers will give us understanding where and how we can use fire as a tool. But when we talk about prescribed burns, prescribed fire in these polluted areas, of course, we don't mean that we will send the people on that areas with the drip torches. For these areas, we will probably use drones and robotic systems for sure.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer. It's time for the next question.
how we can prepare our local areas for invasion and forest fires. First dimension is preparedness and awareness, and I know that now it is very popular movement to organize like voluntary firefighters is a first step. Another step is to prepare these voluntary firefighters to be not just a firefighters for structure fires, but be wildland firefighters is a first step. But maybe even most important step is to adaptate these fire smart principles for your country, for your condition, because I believe that simple setting of these safe zones, like buffer zones without a vegetation on your settlements near your houses, will contribute a lot with reducing of a risk, because mostly we have like most of problems with fast moving grassland fires, and those types of fires can be stopped even by using these buffer zones. So I think involvement communities and adaptation of fire smart principles can be solution.
Perfect, thank you. We'll move on to the next.
Oh, Pedro, hi. So Pedro, have a question. How the mines react to fire? It depends, because sometimes, according to militaries with which I discussed it, and I was also surprised about it. So it depends on the type of mines and materials that they use to develop it, because some types of mines is actually made from plastic, other one made from metal, or combination of both. And it's unpredictable. Short answer is unpredictable. Some of them detonates. Another one just burned without detonates. But third types stay there on the territory and can detonate in any moment. So yeah, it's very unpredictable.
Perfect, thank you. Next question.
Question from Carlo. Do you do preventive fires so that large open space fires do not reach urban areas? Oh, good one. So in Ukraine for a long time, this preventive fires was forbidden, totally forbidden. According to our legislation, like we have no good fires, all fires is a bad. But in May of 2022, we have a small change in legislation where we adopt the idea of not a preventive fire, but we call it prophylactic burns. So now it is like a semi-legal to use a fire to provide safe zones, as you mentioned in your question, for a large open space as well. But we still have a lot of issues with the legislation. So now it is illegal, but it is not clear how to use it in what kind of area, and there is no instruction how to use prescribed burning to this area. So yeah, we still have a lot of work on this, especially in the dimension of legislation, but also some practical issues like to prepare the recommendation, to prepare guidelines, and then to prepare actually foresters and the fire technicians who will do it. Because now, even when it become legal, we don't have a lot of people who actually can do it. We have only like several people for all countries that can do it. So yeah, it's a lot of work. But
thank you very much. And
this one, yeah, it's very important one. Actually, it was an idea to use a fire to prevail this safe zone. So thanks, Carlo, for the question.
And the final last question from Kenny.
Have you been able to determine the impact of fire development on fire fighting by efforts being inhibited by conflict munition risks? What has been the most effective measure of firefighting? Kenny, can you rephrase your question? Because I don't clearly understand what you ask me.
Okay, so in the meantime, we can move on to the next question, and I hope Kenny will rephrase it for you.
Okay. So another one from Louis. Local communities was the use of fire common, for example, to renew pastures. Returning the traditional use of fire to local communities will be important to reduce shrubs and pastures. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a brilliant, because in Ukraine it was a common practice for centuries actually to use traditional fires, and then in the end or early beginning of vegetation season, farmer usually use a fire to clean the pastures and croplands. But during a period of like a Soviet Union occupation and last 30 years of Ukrainian independence, we have this narrative that all fire is bad and all fire is forbidden. And if you set a fire, you are arsonist, and you out of legislation, you are criminal. So for decades, people continue to use the fires, but without any kind of permission, illegally. And probably it is a time to start discussion about returning of this practice, but it will be not so easy, because main narrative in Ukraine is like, fire is only bad thing and all fires have to be suppressed.
Okay, thank you. I see that Kenny rephrased his question, but I would ask you to read it from the chat, because it's split in a different messages, so I can display it all. I can't display it all in the same time. So if you would like to read it from the chat, I would be thankful.
Oh yeah, I will try to do it. Oh, I'm Scottish. Has the data built over the last few years and identified any impact in specific from conflict? Have you found any firefighting methods that have been more effective? Actually, there is no like any super new things, like any know-how that we have or found like more effective. We use a standard, let's say, standard tools that modern firefighters have. Probably most effective tool is using a backfire, but it is also not a unique for Ukraine. So, yeah. But this one is quite effective.
Okay, and one more question.
From Piotr, but you are still mostly using water. Yeah, still using the water. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, I see that someone is still typing, but I think we've reached like our max time. So I'm very sorry to all those who wouldn't be able to ask any question, but also very, very much thanks to you guys for joining the conversation, for asking the question. Thank you, Serhii, for your complex knowledge. I think you exhausted the topic, but you did not exhaust the participants for sure. So thank you very much. If you would like to say something.
I have a final comment. As a reply to Louise, and he said that it is a very common narrative in Eastern Europe, like all against the fire. And it is very important because he's from Portugal, and I also was in Portugal in Utrecht, and I was so impressed. Those guys use a fire and sometimes even suppress a fire with any single drop of water. So it was so amazing. So it is actually something that we need to have and build this skill set in Ukraine.
Okay, so thank you very much, and especially thank you to all the participants who stayed with us to the end. That would be all for today. Thank you for participating. Thank you for the presentation, and have a nice evening. Goodbye.
Thank you all. Bye. Have a nice evening.